Scarlet Park, Bubba Sparks.
Booty, 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 rockin' everywhere. Booty, booty.
Okay, question short. Hey, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do
it. Other common questions they may ask as well is going to be, why do you want to work for this company? Whenever they ask you why do you want to work for this company, try to research the company so you have a good understanding. So say for instance you want to work for Baptist Health. They're going to say, why do you want to work for this company as a phlebotomist? I want to work for this company as a phlebotomist because I see that you guys offer tuition reimbursement and I'm actually looking to go back to school. And on top of that, you guys also offer health insurance, dental insurance, vision, and I can really use that because my mom is in need of insurance as well too. That could be a good question, simple and easy. Another question they're going to ask is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So this phlebotomy interview question basically could be tricky because most of us don't have no idea where they're going to be at in 5 years. Sometimes you just want to say something to make it sound good, or if you don't know where you're going to be at in 5 years, try to think of something that may make it sound good. Something I could say is, in 5 years I could see myself as an LPN working at a nursing home helping out the elderly patients. I currently work for pain management right now as a medical assistant and I help out assist with elderly patients, so I figured this will be the best fit for me. You just keep it nice and simple. Don't try to put too much on it where it's like you get yourself confused. Next, how do you stay focused when you're under a lot of stress? Basically, you turn in this question into a stress into a positive. That's how you're going to turn this question into. So for an example, you could say, whenever I'm drawing blood from a patient, I feel like I'm under so much stress because the patient likes to sit and watch and make sure nothing goes wrong. But at the same time, I like to make sure that I'm just either counting in my head, try to have a little tune. Also, make sure that I associate with the patient whenever I'm doing the job so they know that I still be able to multitask, communicate, and get the job done as well too. They're gonna be pressed at you if you answer it like that. Alright, so YouTube, this video is going to talk about how basically to prepare yourself when it comes to a phlebotomy interview. I'm not going to hold you guys long. I am on my lunch break sitting in an empty room right now. So yeah, pretty much. So the first thing you want to do whenever it comes to preparing yourself for an interview when it comes to phlebotomy, one, you want to prepare for the job interview. So in order to prepare for the job interview, you basically want to research the company, research the position that you're going to be taking care of. This will basically give you insights and skills as far as for what you're going to get yourself into. Now, this refers back to when I first started off with my phlebotomy job. I was working at a plasma center. Before I even got hired on, I had already looked up the company. I made sure that I looked at the position. I even looked up the salary, but at the same time, I just want to know what I was getting myself into. So you always want to try to research everything to try to see what you're going to get yourself into. Also, you want to make sure that you write down key points as far as for common interview questions when it comes to phlebotomy. If you ever check out any of my other videos, you'll be able to see as far as for how I had already prepared for you the certain questions that are asked, and also on how to respond on those questions. So this is to kind of get you a little bit step ahead, even after like looking at those videos, like, okay, after looking at those videos, what's the next step to do? So I would definitely start researching the company so you can start knowing exactly what you're getting yourself into. Also, make sure that you look up the location when it comes to the interview. Whenever you look up the location, that lets you know the type of area that you're going to be surrounding yourself around. Most people, you don't know, they may prefer to work further away from home because they feel as if they get more money that way. It all just depends. But at the same time, whenever you look up the location, that lets you know. You can also see what's convenient in the area whenever it comes to your lunchtime, where if you need to get some food or if you need to get some gas, try to look at those type of things to see if it's a lot convenient and you're not just surrounded around nothing. Okay, so when they asked you, why do you want to become a phlebotomist? Basically, you're going to try to basically give this a personal response. You're going to try to tell them the reason on, you know, your whole entire goal. What was the reason behind applying? Just basically answer that. Now, if someone was asking me that type of question, the reason why I became a phlebotomist, I would say something like, the reason why I became a phlebotomist is because I love the care for the patients. I have an excellent technique calming them down whenever I do the blood draw. So I figured that this is the field for me. It fits for me. I love the customer service. I'm great at what I do. I just love phlebotomy. So that can be like an expert response that you can kind of do as far as for that question. Another question they often like to ask is, how would you handle a distressed and aggravated patient? So whenever answering this, you want to kind of write down some tips on how to handle patients when it comes to phlebotomy, and try to include a story as far as for what you did to prevent them from freaking out or anything like that. A way that I will answer this question is, I handle stress fully, completely. stress doesn't bother me. And then you'll try to throw in a story. So I can say one time there was a patient who was really scared of needles, and you know, I know this patient, every time they come in, they always get a fright when it comes to the needles. I asked the patient how are their kids doing. I try to talk about music, the upcoming events coming on in the city, and before I knew it, I was done with the blood draw and the patient wasn't scared. So, you know, you can kind of share those type of stories. If you don't have a story that relates to the topic, try to share a story where you worked at another job and you know, you had dealt with a difficult patient. So, or if it's not even a patient, customer. So try to throw that in as well too. As long as they see that you know how to handle when being like, when there's so much stress on you, as long as they see that, they'll be willing to move forward with everything. Okay, the next one is going to be, what happens if you're unable to find the vein? So this is always a good question, because at the same time, you just never know how to handle. Most people really don't know how to handle those type of things. This question is asking basically how many attempts would you get as far as for drawing that blood before it gets worse. And also the key to knowing this is that the average facilities allow 2 attempts. If you ever watch my video, I always say try to get on the first stick, but the second stick is the best. But at the same time, you don't want to try to get to the second stick. Always try to get the blood the first time, because not only does the patient get aggravated, it could sometimes put more stress on you, and you start freaking out because you don't see any blood and you're wondering if you're doing it right. Or it could be the patient didn't drink as much water. You just never know. So at the same time, you want to make sure that you're following those right protocols. So whenever they ask this question, always say, I will only try to stick for 1, strive for the best for 1. But at the same time, the most that I would stick a patient will be 2 attempts. And if I don't know what I'm doing, I'll try to find someone that's in the area to try to see if they can help me out. Just try to get someone before the situation get worse. So whenever you go to a phlebotomy interview, they always like to throw in a question to see if you know the knowledge of the order of draw. Do check out my videos to see the other videos that I have of the order of draw. I'll leave it in the link below. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you have a history of knowing certain phlebotomy questions. They may ask you, what is a tourniquet and how long do you keep a tourniquet on? The answer to that question is the tourniquet is what's going to help me get the blood to palpate, basically to get bigger, so you could be able to insert the needle and get the successful blood draw. If I'm not mistaken, to my knowledge, you keep the tourniquet on no more than a minute. That's a good way to answer that question, so that way they know that you have a history as far as for that. They could also throw in another question like, so what tube would you draw? What tube would you use to draw blood when getting a patient who has diabetes? You would definitely get a tube that's a gray tube, because you have to check their glucose level. You have to make sure that they're having the correct one. So those are the type of questions that they may throw in at you. Just make sure that you kind of got a history as far as for certain phlebotomy questions, so you won't get stuck. And if you ever feel like you get stuck during an interview, don't just be like, oh, I messed up or anything like that. Like, just kind of I'm so sorry, it just flew past my head. I completely forgot what I was about to say. Can you repeat that question? You know, something like that, so it won't be so much stress whenever doing this interview. So at the same time, I hope this be able to help you guys out. Do leave the comments below to let me know what you guys think about this video. If you guys have any questions, I'll be sure to answer that. And I'm hoping everybody enjoy their day. Stay safe through this coronavirus, because it's definitely getting worse, you guys. Seriously.